Hi, it's great to see you. Everybody out there in TV world, famous world, and unfamous world, anywhere, wherever you are. My name is Janet Christensen O'Brien. I'm talking to you about why I want Judge Wiggins in jail. That's Justice Charles Wiggins. He's on the Washington State Supreme Court. He's going to be retiring in March, and I think he should be in jail. Instead of just letting him retire, I think he should go to jail. My first experience with Judge Wiggins occurred in 1996. He was an expert on a meretricious relationship case. And at the time, he extorted $1.3 million out of the company because he knew there was no tax liability and no tax and no anything owed, period, on the case he was an expert on. Gail McElroy was the attorney, and Catherine Smith was the other attorney, and Wiggins was the expert brought in from Bainbridge Island. Now, at the time, I went over to Bainbridge Island, and I talked to Wiggins, and I wrote him a letter, and I gave him the letter. I filed the letter in the court records because the document they were using, which was a pro forma tax return, was a fraudulent document. It wasn't a real document. It was just little numbers in the air. Anybody can do that. Just write up a tax return fictitiously, never sign it, never send it into the IRS. And so he used that document as proof that $600,000, $238,000, and $171,000 were due on a $600,000 obligation. That's just bogus for the tax on tax on tax on tax on tax on tax and all the liability involved in that. And so that's the reason why he allowed, as an expert, the money to be paid, $1.3 million. And then he extorted money from that case. And so I was the whistleblower who kept saying that there was no tax liability owed. And then Catherine Smith yelled and screamed at me and grabbed my hair. She was grabbing my hair, saying, "You can't do this, you can't do this," grabbing my hair, yelling and screaming, and that Wiggins was going to be an expert on the case. Well, Wiggins, Catherine Smith, Sally Lanham, Michael Longyear, Gail McElroy, they all know that they defrauded that client out of $1.3 million. They all know that. And then what happened is Dorothy Grega. Dorothy Grega was a beautiful old woman living in her house in Mercer Island, and they sold her house. And Richard Gregoric and BDO filed fictitious tax returns with a fictitious EIN number on it for the medical office, the parking lots, the homes, and everything else that they sold under a fictitious EIN number, under a fictitious Grega Charitable Trust. There was no Grega Charitable Trust. It was established in 1996, but it was never filed with the IRS. If you don't file it with the IRS, it isn't a legitimate charitable trust. And they used their friend from the Attorney General's office, who is in the trust section of the Attorney General's office, to sign as the representative for the charitable trust that was never even designated. So that's the reason why. And Donna Mae Curley said, "I want you dead," to her mother, Dorothy Grega. And so it was all a plot by all these attorneys to steal poor little Dorothy's house, and they participated in her death. You know, Dorothy Grega, poor little woman, got moved out of her house into a nursing home. They changed her phone number so nobody could get a hold of her, and she died. And she died in 2008. And this is 2020. And nobody has ever accounted for Dorothy Grega's house. The house that they sold for $1.3 million. It's not in the probate. It's not in the guardianship. It's in somebody's trust fund, one of the lawyers. And so the reason why they all these cases from the original meretricious relationship case that they were involved in, Wiggins was involved in, and the Grega case is because the Grega case went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and it was not assigned to Judge Wiggins. It was assigned to two other judges in the Supreme Court. And Wiggins, because he's friends of the lawyers, dismissed it. He dismissed it without even being on the record for that case. That was a big conflict of interest. And then I went up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and Gregory Miller went up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and it's a case number now. But that's the thing is, there's a lot of different things. Nancy Bradburn Johnson, who is a commissioner in King County, she held a hearing while the courthouse was closed because of snow. And the hearing was with Jennifer Baharski, who is another attorney with the Washington State Attorney General's office. She and Nancy Bradburn Johnson went into the courthouse when it was closed because of a snow day, and they had their own special hearing. And they appointed Dan Smirkin as a guardian for Robert Hamlin. When they did that, Dan Smirkin removed $132,000 out of a joint account of Avis and Robert Hamlin, and poor little Avis, she had to go up and go to the Court of Appeals to get that money back. So the thing is, all of these cases Charles Wiggins was involved with. All of these cases involve fraud on the court. And all of these cases, the poor little people, they got defrauded. And now what's happening? Michael Longyear, who was involved in the Dorothy Greggett case and never accounted for the $1.3 million, Michael Longyear is involved in Arthur Hayes. Poor little Arthur Hayes. He's a little man who thought he was going to live the rest of his life with all his money. He's probably worth $22 million. And Michael Longyear took over his company, his Hayes LLC, and he's the member of the company, he's the manager of the company, and he's the guardian of the estate of Arthur Hayes. How can you be a guardian of an estate when you're an attorney? How can you take over somebody's private business like that? And so they are liquidating assets. They are selling buildings. They are selling buildings without doing tax returns. And that's what they did on the Dorothy Greggett case. They sold her home. They never accounted for it. The money from the BDO opened in a bank account was never accounted for. I know of $200,000 that was put in the Bank of America in Kirkland under a fictitious EIN number and the Greggett Trust, and none of that's ever been accounted for. So all of that's round up into Charles Wiggins' little strange dealings. And it should be investigated, and Charles Wiggins, yes, I'm glad he's retiring, but he should be in jail. So anyway, thank you for watching Public Interest Issue Show. And Charles Wiggins, not only should he retire, he should go to jail. Charles Wiggins should be in jail. Gail McElroy should be in jail. Nancy Bradburn Johnson, who's a commissioner, should be in jail. Michael Longyear should be in jail. And Larry Jordan, who was on the King County bench, Larry Jordan, for the things he did on those cases, he should be in jail. They should all be in jail. And that's what I think. And if you are a witness out there who have been defrauded by these people and they've destroyed your life, I'd like to hear from you. My phone number is 206-854-0375. Hey, you can get a hold of me. I'll do a video of you. We can talk about Wiggins. We can talk about Longyear. We can talk about Nancy Bradburn Johnson, who thinks she's above the law because she holds hearings without the courthouse even having these orders before the court. How can you enter an order that isn't before the court with a lawyer that shouldn't even be in the courtroom because the courthouse is closed? And I know the courthouse was closed because on the second floor, the judge's mailroom is always open. And I'd gone into the courthouse on that particular day because the King County Sheriffs downstairs know me. I went up to the second floor and I filed a document. And you can have a copy receive stamp from that floor. And then I went up to the floor that they are on and I asked the sheriff downstairs if the courthouse and all the courtrooms are closed. And he said, yes, it's a snow day, the courthouse is closed. And then lo and behold, 3 days later, this order comes out that was signed on that day. So I think somebody should investigate Nancy Bradburn Johnson for her unethical behavior on the bench. And I think somebody should investigate Charles Wiggins for his unethical behavior on the bench. And I think somebody should investigate Larry Jordan. Larry Jordan, you remember me. I'm not going to forget. And I'm not going to forget you embezzled $1.3 million. And how many other companies have you destroyed? Larry Jordan, Charles Wiggins, and Nancy Bradburn Johnson, you should all be afraid of yourself. You're unethical, and you should be disbarred, and you should be in jail. And I'm Janet Christensen O'Brien, and I'm not going to forget. If anybody wants me to testify, I'm not going to forget. I'm available. I'm not going to forget. And I have real documents. And I will use those real documents, and I will do more stories like this until you guys are in jail.
This is my third delay.